I live on a quiet suburban street where every lawn looks the same and most neighbors wave but never really talk. This summer, my parents planned to spend a Saturday night at my aunt's house for an early birthday dinner. It was a kind of neighborhood where bad things don't happen. But that night, the silence wasn't just quiet, it felt unnatural, like the air itself was waiting. I was 17, old enough to stay home alone, and honestly looking forward to it. No siblings, no noise. Just me, my dog, and leftover pizza. Around 7:30 p.m., I heard something. It wasn't dramatic, just a soft knock, barely a tap. I looked out the peephole. No one. It happened again 10 minutes later. This time, 2 knocks. Still soft. Still no one there. I figured it was a wind or a dumb prank. My dog didn't bark. That was the weird part. He always barked, even when the mailman came by. But that night, he just sat by the back door, completely still, ears perked. And then he growled. It was low, a rumble that felt like it came from deep in his chest. He only ever did that when something serious was wrong. I turned off the TV. The glow from the screen faded, and I was left in near darkness. Only the hum of the fridge behind me and my dog, still staring at the back door. Something scratched the glass. Just once. That was enough. I walked slowly toward the kitchen. My heart was racing, and I kept telling myself it was just a branch, a raccoon, something stupid. But then I noticed the lock on the back door was unlatched. That made no sense. I hadn't opened it all day. I locked it after lunch, like always. And my parents always double-check the doors before they leave. I stared at the lock for a long time. I didn't move. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Everything okay at home? I didn't want to freak her out. So I replied, all good, just watching a movie. That was a lie. The TV was off, and I wasn't watching anything, except the back door. I waited a few minutes before I walked up to it and locked it. Then, for some reason I can't explain, I turned off all the lights in the house. Maybe I thought it would make me invisible. I crept upstairs into my room and sat in the dark. My dog followed, but instead of curling up on the bed like usual, he sat at the doorway, watching the stairs. There was a part of me that wanted to laugh it off. Maybe I was just spooked. Maybe this was one of those moments you forget about the next morning. Except, I didn't forget, because what happened at 10:41 p.m. is something I've never told anyone, not even my parents. There was a sound in the attic. It was a single, heavy thump, not like something fell, like someone dropped to their knees. I froze. There's no attic access in my room, just a crawl hatch in the hallway ceiling. My dad always kept it bolted shut, but when I stepped out of my room, flashlight in hand, I noticed something wrong. The hallway was colder. I didn't think air could feel that still, that pressed down, like something thick was hanging above me. I aimed the flashlight up. The attic hatch was slightly open, not enough to see anything, just enough to know that it had moved. The metal latch that was always secured, hanging by a thread. I whispered my dog's name. He didn't move, just stood there, tail rigid. I didn't know what to do. I texted my dad. Can the attic door open by itself? No reply. I walked backward into my room and locked the door. And here's the thing. I thought I heard someone breathing through the air vent. Deep, wet breaths. Slow and heavy. They didn't last long. Maybe 30 seconds. Maybe less. But I couldn't sleep after that. I stayed up until sunrise, holding a baseball bat and watching the door. My parents got home around 8 a.m. They said nothing looked disturbed. Nothing was missing. Nothing strange. But I didn't imagine it. I know I didn't. 2 days later, my dad called a pest guy to check the attic. They didn't find any animals. But the attic door, the guy said it had scratch marks along the inside of the hatch. Long ones, like fingernails. That was 4 years ago. I still live on the same street. Same lawn, same neighbors. But when night falls, I leave all the lights on. Because I know something was in my house that night. And I'm not sure it ever really left. When I was 13, my older brother used to scare me with stories about a man who lived in the walls. He'd say, Don't leave food out or he'll come down from the crawl space. It was just a joke. Something he whispered when the lights were off. But now, years later, I'm not so sure he was lying. This happened when I was 19. I was home alone for 3 nights straight. My parents had gone to visit my grandmother in another state. I stayed behind because of college exams. They offered to take me, but I told them I needed the quiet. Quiet is exactly what I got. Too much of it. On the second night, I woke up to footsteps upstairs. That's not unusual, unless you sleep on the top floor. It wasn't loud, just slow creaks, like someone walking carefully, or trying not to be heard. I sat up and listened. Nothing. I was too scared to call out. I just waited. I thought maybe it was a dream. I eventually fell back asleep. The next morning, I checked all the rooms. Everything looked fine. Doors still locked. Nothing missing. I told myself it was a house settling. But that evening, things got worse. I was on the couch around 10 p.m. eating cereal and watching YouTube. That's when I noticed it. The front door. It was locked. Deadbolt, chain, everything. But the bottom corner was wet, like someone spilled water right in front of it. It hadn't rained. There was nothing dripping. It was just wet, and the air around it smelled strange. Like dirt, wet wood, old breath. I stood there, staring at it for a long time. Then I heard something else. A tap from behind the wall. 3 taps. Then silence. I moved to the kitchen to grab a knife. I wasn't going to take chances. I stood in the hallway for at least 30 minutes, just waiting to hear anything again. Nothing. So I went to bed, but I left my bedroom door unlocked. I don't know why. I guess I thought maybe I'd need to run. I wish I had locked it, because at 3:12 a.m., I heard it creak open. It was slow, like someone pressing just enough to make it swing on its own. I was frozen in bed, my back facing the door. Then the mattress dipped, just a little, just enough to let me know something was sitting at the edge. My body went numb. I could hear my own pulse in my ears. I didn't move. I didn't scream. I just stared at the wall. And then I felt it. A hand touched my leg. I jerked upright, but the room was empty. No one there. The door was half open, just like before, but the hall light was still off. I don't know how I slept after that, but I must have passed out from fear. The next morning, my sheets were dirty, like someone with muddy hands had pressed them. Small, brown stains across the foot of the bed. I did what anyone would do. I checked every inch of the house. Inside cabinets, under the stairs, even the attic. Nothing. But when I opened a hallway closet, the one next to the front door, something slid off the top shelf and landed at my feet. It was a spoon, one of ours, and it was still wet. That's when I realized someone had been eating in our house. I called my parents and begged them to come home early. They said they'd be back the next night. That last night, I didn't sleep. I sat up in the kitchen, knife on the table, lights on in every room. Around 2 a.m., I heard the sound again. This time, I followed it, the tapping. It came from the air vent in the living room. I pulled a chair over and looked inside. Nothing. I turned away, and then a breath. Right behind me. I turned around so fast I knocked the chair over. But no one was there, except the vent. It was no longer empty. There was something deep inside it. I could barely see it, but it was there, just out of reach. 2 tiny lights, like eyes reflecting back at me. I backed away and locked myself in the bathroom until morning. My parents didn't believe me, but we had the entire HVAC system checked. The tech said the inside of the vent was scratched. Not from rodents, too big, like a small human had crawled through it. They replaced the grates, closed off some of the crawl tunnels. But I still hear it sometimes when I stay over. A breath through the vents, or the soft sound of silverware clinking. It's why I never sleep alone anymore. And if you're watching this right now, and you're home alone too, maybe double check the air vents, just in case. Hey, if stories like this keep you up too, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. And turn the bell on. I post new disturbing stories every week, and trust me, it gets darker from here. The police never found anything. That's what still keeps me up. This happened last winter, just after New Year's. I was house sitting for my cousin while she visited her in-laws for the weekend. Nice house, 2 stories, quiet street. I'd stayed there before and nothing weird ever happened. But this time, something felt different. From the moment I walked in, I noticed a smell. Not strong, just faint. Like something stale. Moldy wood. Like when a crawl space hasn't been opened in years. I opened the windows, aired out the rooms, and didn't think much of it. Her cat, Mila, brushed up against my leg as I unpacked. She seemed fine, calm. But that night, I found her staring at the hallway wall for almost 15 minutes without blinking, just watching it. At around 11:45 p.m., the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the peephole. No one there, just the porch light buzzing, flickering slightly. I opened the door slowly, half expecting to see a prank or package. Nothing, but when I turned back inside, Mila was hiding behind the couch. She wouldn't come out. That's when the knocking started, from the back of the house, on the sliding glass door in the kitchen. 3 knocks, precise, spaced out, calm. I walked over, heart pounding. I could see the backyard clearly. The porch light was on, but there was no one there, and no footprints in the snow. Just a trail of melted patches leading away from the door, like someone had walked through, but left no real marks, just the ghost of warmth. I stayed up most of the night. Every few minutes, I thought I heard footsteps upstairs. But whenever I checked, the rooms were empty. The second night was worse, much worse. It started with the lights. The hallway light began flickering around 10 p.m., then the kitchen one, then the bathroom. They weren't old bulbs. My cousin had just replaced them before Christmas. Then I heard a crash upstairs. I rushed up, expecting broken glass or something knocked over. But everything was untouched, except the guest room closet. The door was open. Inside, there was an old blanket on the floor, like someone had been sleeping there. But my cousin never used that room. She told me it was just storage. And next to the blanket, there was a photo, one I'd never seen. It was a printed picture of the house. The front porch, taken from the sidewalk. But something about it was off. The angle looked too low, too sharp, like it had been taken from a crouch position, hiding. I flipped it over. One word was written on the back, in pencil, closer. I didn't know what to do. I was too afraid to call the cops in case they thought I was crazy. So I locked every window, every door, every latch. I even blocked the sliding glass door with a chair. Then I made the mistake of falling asleep. I woke up at 3:27 a.m. to the sound of Mila screeching. It wasn't a normal cat noise. It was a scream from the basement. I didn't even know the basement door was unlocked. When I got there, the door was open, but the lights were off. I called out for her. No answer. I took my phone and turned on the flashlight. Step by step, I walked down. It was freezing. I could see my breath. Halfway down, the door slammed shut behind me. And that's when I heard it. Whispers. So quiet I couldn't understand them. Dozens of voices, overlapping, as if they were trapped inside the walls. And then something cold brushed past my neck. I turned around with the flashlight. Nothing there. Mila suddenly bolted out from behind a pile of boxes, jumped into my arms, and clawed at my chest until I ran back upstairs with her. I didn't sleep after that. I stayed with the lights on, sitting in the corner of the living room. But just before dawn, I realized something horrifying. The photo. I had left it on the kitchen counter. Now, it was lying on the floor, right outside the front door. And the word on the back? It no longer said closer. Now it said, inside. I left that morning. Told my cousin there was a power outage and weird noises. She didn't question it. But a few weeks later, she texted me. Hey, did you leave a photo here? The one with the porch? I told her no. Weird. It's back on the counter. She didn't sound scared. But I was, because I never brought it inside the house to begin with. I don't think it ever left. And I don't think whatever took that photo ever did either. I never told anyone what happened that night. Not because I forgot, but because I remember everything. It was supposed to be just another evening alone. My roommate had gone home for the weekend. Her family lived only a few hours away, and I had work early the next day, so I stayed behind. It was a small rental house near campus. Old, creaky floors. Windows that didn't close properly unless you slammed them. I'd stayed there alone before. No problem. But this time it didn't feel right. The moment she left, I felt it. That heavy silence. It wasn't peaceful. It felt like something was waiting to move. I tried to ignore it. Made tea. Turned on some music. Watched Netflix. Everything was fine until I walked past the hallway mirror. I caught something. Not my reflection. A shadow. For a second, no more than that, I saw someone standing behind me. Pale face. No eyes. But when I spun around, the hallway was empty. I stared at the mirror for a long time. It was just a trick, I told myself. Stress. Shadows. Until I walked into the bedroom and found a chair placed perfectly in the corner of a room. We don't keep chairs in the bedroom. There's no reason to. But there it was, like someone had pulled it from the kitchen and set it down gently for watching. I checked every door, every window. I even opened the pantry and crawl space. Nothing. No sign of a break-in. Just a chair. So I pushed it back into the kitchen, shut the lights off, and locked myself in my room. Midnight came, and with it, the sound, a slow dragging, across the floor. I held my breath and listened. It moved past the hallway, paused. Then the door handle turned. Once. Then again. I sat frozen in bed, my phone in my hand. But I didn't call anyone, because deep down I felt something strange. Familiar. It felt like this wasn't the first time. Like something inside me already knew what came next. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up at 4:11 a.m. My lamp was on. My blanket was pulled down to my feet, and on my pillow was a Polaroid, a photo of me, sleeping, from above. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there, looking at it. The picture was blurry, like whoever took it was shaking, but it was real. I flipped it over. There was something written in red marker. For words. You looked right through me. I left the house before sunrise. When my roommate came back the next day, I told her the truth. We called the cops. They searched the house. They found nothing. But a week later, my roommate woke up to a photo on her nightstand. Same kind, same marker, different words. She saw me first. We moved out a month later. I haven't lived alone since. But sometimes, I still wake up in the middle of the night, sure that someone's standing just outside my door, waiting for me to fall asleep again. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. These stories aren't easy to hear, and honestly not easy to tell. But if you want more like this, stories that make you turn the lights on before bed, hit that subscribe button and come back next week. Because some of the most terrifying stories are the ones we're not supposed to survive. And sometimes, we don't even know they've already started until it's too late.